Yeah. Mine doesn't look very good either. You're Brady Jackson. But Brady's doing Ella Brooks and 421. He's pretty prone to sit in the chair.
All right, I think we'll get started, you guys. And did everybody happen to get a copy of the agenda? And I know we have some more out there in the front with prints out of the chapters today. Do we have anybody else that is not normally? I think the two, you guys on the end, you guys came before, right?
You were here once before.
Okay, you were here last couple months ago.
Yep.
Say your name.
Don and Sue also.
And anybody else that's not on the task force advisory members?
Hello, I'm Slater Barb with Sioux Falls Development Foundation.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you can make it too, Slater. Okay, so just briefly go over what the agenda we have for today. A couple of the chapters being people in public safety. Again, a lot of that is some of the county services, other services that would be located within the city of Sioux Falls, Brandon, and some of the other municipalities. Then we'll go into some agricultural information, being our ag tourism and ag overlay districts. And we also have some historical data in an additional chapter for this afternoon. I do have an activity that I wanted to look at for economic development purposes, looking at some railroad opportunities that might present themselves in the future. So with the knowledge of people in the county, maybe take a look at these. I have a couple maps. I know we had looked at some of the areas before that would be higher traffic for different types of commercial businesses, but I want to just gear it just towards maybe more high intensive, like a rail operation or something that would need, it could be some type of an ag business or something that would need the rail. So I have an activity for that. And we had some more questions about the use of eligibilities and some of the information that we've provided to the Hartford development just north of Hartford in that residential area. So we'll go over that as well. All right, let's get to the right chapter here. I do apologize. There are a couple of these pages that are misleading because they are in the wrong location. If I can find it for you. This chapter starts off with existing facilities, which then goes with our county existing buildings. So underneath the people and public safety, if you would flip through your packet here, about 5 pages or so. The first page of that one is actually showing a picture of the Minnehaha County Highway Department. So you need to go on the other side of that one. So apologize for that. I'm just briefly going to go over some of the sections in this chapter. A lot of it is just what's out there right now existing. And then the main part I really want to get to is the goals of this chapter and how we can use this information for the future of Minnehaha County. Again, the public safeties chapter, if you have any questions as we go along or something that you might want to add, maybe it's something that you would like to add in the library section, something that I maybe missed, if you know a little bit about the fire departments or the ambulance or something along those lines, something that we could add in there to make it more useful or that might help us in the future of the development of this plan. So again, starting off, we listed out some of the county buildings. And I do have a map here also that shows some of these facilities, and I'll put that up on the screen here for you. The main three areas that we have are our downtown campus, our highway department, and then we have some other services that are located throughout the city of Sioux Falls. So we picked some different care facilities that are just north of I-229. So this just goes over where our county jail is, our public safety administration building, the old courthouse museum, our plant, the county highway, some of the different types of structures that they have out there. And looking at some of the square footages, we wanted to total them up, that we have approximately, or just over 800,000 square feet of owned facility space. And this doesn't take into consideration some of our storage facilities and stuff. It's mainly our buildings, our courthouses, stuff that people actually occupy for offices and other space. We went over some of the years that some of the stuff was constructed, just looking into the future, saying as like a goal would say, as we monitor the population and how the county grows, we'll need more space in the jail, or we'll need more space for courthouse or administration services. And right now, obviously, like the county highway department, they've stated that they've outgrown their facility and are looking at building something new in the near future. So actually going back up, I believe, oh goodness, that is just not working with me. Goes over our county highway department and emergency services. Again, I'm going to outline the emergency services. There's a number of county, municipal, and private organizations, a number of police, fire, and ambulance services that supply service to Minnehaha County. And then I kind of go forward to break them down into public safety and the sheriff's department. And again, Minnehaha County Sheriff's Department also contracts with 9 of the municipalities. So if you weren't aware of that, Baltic, Crooks, Colton, Del Rapids, Garrettson, Hartford, Humboldt, Sherman, and Valley Springs, we provide all the services to them cities through our Sheriff's Department. The only 2 cities being Sioux Falls and Brandon that have actual police departments within their cities. Kind of explain this a little bit more. We have, which is our police beats map, if anybody is familiar with that. It just breaks down our county into different areas, so they are response areas. Again, the majority of that is serviced by Minnehaha County Sheriff. This isn't probably something that the normal reader would probably look at and understand everything in this particular map, because it is coded for the sheriff's office and for Metro Communications to understand and where to send a particular sheriff to. Just for example, just some background on a map like this, a sheriff potentially might be assigned to the beat of 380 in the northeast corner of Minnehaha County all day, or they might be assigned to 390 in the Wall Lake area, or one of the other beats that would be in city limits or in one of the municipalities in Minnehaha County.
So if they have a call in Crooks, it's listed as 250.
That's right.
Just 250 is just a code for Crooks.
That's right. So there would be a sheriff potentially assigned to just Crooks. They could be Crooks and 370. That could maybe be their beat all day. It just is information for when people look at a plan like this. When they read through this, they can understand that who and where we provide services in the county.
Brian, are those services provided outside of just calls?
Say that again?
Is that service, those services, are they provided wherever they're supposed to be? Are they supposed to be out there in those beats?
Well, that if they're there or they respond to that number. I mean, maybe they are doing, I don't know if they're at the courthouse or they're doing something else that day. They could be assigned to that, and they need to go to that call in that beat area. But again, that's just for police and.
Must be good revenue.
The next one we go over is fire protection services. Again, there are 13 volunteer fire departments and 1 full-time fire department located with, and that is located with the city of Sioux Falls. I used a good source, which is the Minnehaha County Fire Chiefs Association. It goes over some of the different stations that the city of Sioux Falls has, along with stations that are in the rural area, being Humboldt, Del Rapids, Hartford, Humboldt, and I will Split Rock. Yeah, so there's a handful of different. Obviously, there's 13 different departments, and these are all broken down by fire dispatch areas. So if you take a look at that map, and again, you might have to flip back a page potentially to see that map because they happen to be out of order for some reason. We do have the fire dispatch areas, and you can see them that they're listed on the left-hand side. We have Air Guard, Baltic, Brandon, Crooks, Del Rapids, Garrettson, Hartford, Humboldt, Jasper, Lyons, Parker, Renner, Sherman, Sioux Falls, Split Rock, and Valley Springs. In this fire, outside of this area, some of these do cross over into Minnesota, or they would north, south, or west of Minnehaha County as well. I just showed the fire dispatch areas because these are their main areas that they would be assigned to. They also have municipal aid, which Humboldt would potentially cross over into Hartford since it's a neighboring dispatch area if they needed assistance for something. Or Split Rock would maybe go and give municipal aid up to Brandon, Red Rock, or Valley Springs. But for the sake of the conversation, to look at where they're assigned for the majority are these particular dispatch areas.
How far out does Sioux Falls go for mutual aid? Do you know?
Well, when you asked that, I wish I had that map right here for you too, but let me just check once, see if I show our municipal aid.
I know they didn't come to our place this summer.
They didn't?
With upon request, they brought a ladder truck out.
Isn't it dependent on the need?
That's right, if they would already be on a call.
Yeah.
If they would be on a call, then, you know, if if Hartford was already on a call and they needed somebody else, Humboldt would provide municipal aid in there, or it could be Metro or, the Crooks or somebody else would provide that aid. And so them aids overlap, you know, a few miles plus into there for sure. But I'm not saying that.
They just happened to be in the spot at one time where the Cliff Avenues, where the Benson Road station was on there was a pretty big fire in Sioux Falls, so Renner came and manned the Benson Road station for Sioux Falls. But I mean, that was, I hadn't heard of that before, but Renner actually came in and manned the Sioux Falls station, the Benson Road station for traffic, I suppose.
I believe they're all fairly good at working together, even if it, I don't, you know, just because it goes outside of that municipal aid area, they're not gonna say, we're not gonna come and help them, the residents out if they need assistance, but it just breaks it down just one more step. And again, I didn't include that because having the 2 maps for the fire dispatch, it really didn't, I mean, we can definitely include it in there, but for the general reader to look at it, it doesn't really necessarily apply because they just want to know that there's fire service in the county where it would be located at. Dean?
I think most of them have mutual aid agreements also, and that's what the city of Sioux Falls has with all of them, I think in Minnehaha County and most of Lincoln and Turner, where upon request they come. Or if they're out, let's say Split Rock's out on a grass fire or something, they may have lined up Sioux Falls, their mutual aid to that particular occasion. That, which is different than municipal aid, because municipal aid, as you're showing here, is the districts they usually serve.
Yeah, I'm just showing their normal district. These are their areas. This isn't any aid districts that they would provide. One, this is a much cleaner map. When it gets the municipal aids, they get broken up so much more, it's almost confusing to read.
Does the ambulance map go along with the fire map, or does it go with the police beat map? And do we anticipate any changes in the way the ambulance services are done? There's been a lot of debate about that. It seems like over the last few years.
They change. I forget. I know that I've been on some of our county commission when they are some of them fighting for their areas to try to get for ambulance. Let's say that Jasper still wants part of Minnehaha County, but you know, rural metro or Garrettson or somebody wants to take over that portion, you know, to be able to service them. So, are there changes in this? Yes, there are. So this isn't something. It's as of right now, January. You know, these are dated January 2013. But some of this information is constantly changing. So
Yeah, I understand that.
that maybe I didn't.
No, I just didn't know if there was any, long-term idea of what was going to be happening with ambulance service, if it continues to work the same way it does today, and
Versus saying
Yeah, well,
only
there's-
having two.
well, I don't know.
Versus
It
having-
seems like there's been funding challenges, for everybody to keep their ambulances going rather than week here. I just didn't know if there was ever any different master plan coming down the pipe. Or...
And I guess to be more specific on that, I would have to talk with somebody.
It's the only reason I bring it up
Yeah.
is because just listening to the
Yeah.
locals in Garrison that talk about it and what you hear in the news and view from 20,000 feet, it's obviously not a smooth thing.
Yeah, I did talk with some of these departments. Metro, I talked with them, asking what they felt they would like to add for our plan. Pretty basic, kind of outline what they do. Didn't really say necessarily where they're going. So it's hard for our staff to decide where that department's going at. But I think it's definitely another question worth asking to maybe include that to say the future of ambulance services are this. It's something that's what we're going over now anyway. So.
In the end, will there be 2 ambulance services
Yeah.
covering a larger area, or will it be 7 different ambulance services, or what will be happening?
And I think that's a good question for a couple of these other public safety measures, if you will.
Is MedStar still doing any, or are they private? Can you tell me? You know, right?
Say that one more time.
MedStar, are they private? They use?
I don't know, I'm just particularly going off of where the areas that they service. I didn't go,
They're still around, I don't know what their status is though.
I know there was quite a discussion, and I think now that they have allowed them to take some calls, but I have to go, we can ask Ken and Farland what the deal is with that stuff. They've been in here many times.
And they were part of the discussion of the ambulance task force, which I sat on many years ago, which really things didn't get resolved about that whole issue of ambulance services.
I believe they did give that some jurisdiction to work within because they've been expanding their fleet. You see them around Brandon, I think they work in that area.
Isn't Brandon maybe?
Yeah.
Isn't those there? Didn't they-
City of Brandon possibly. That's their, I think they're primary for that, and they've got some other areas they can help in possibly. But there's definitely been an expansion there.
yeah, we can look into a few more of them just to get some more background information on some of the, but again, if that changes as well, like you said, they're operating now, will they be in the future?
There is ambulance service in the county, it's just how it's gonna be done.
That's right.
I still ask, that's why I asked the question, yes.
Well, my question is the response time in rural communities, the safety out there because of that. And we have a lot of elderly people in rural communities, and they wonder, how long is it gonna take? I mean, our volunteer fire departments go out, but they can't transport it. I mean, sometimes they're stuck. And then what they do is a wait and see type of situation, which I was on one of their calls about a week ago. And there was a pretty lengthy wait, folks. So it makes you kind of wonder, how long you can sit there and wait. And our guys can only do so much, that's the thing. I mean, they do, they have EMT services, but they can only do so much.
So you could just go out as EMTs, but you don't have a vehicle that you could.
Well, they won't let us.
Yeah, that's what I was.
You can't transport at all.
The the city or the county volunteers can transport, so you have Humboldt as an ambulance, which they've had for a long time. You know, that covers a lot of area out there, but it seems like it's east is probably, gets to be more of a problem.
I think it's something like, I know they have to have something as far as their response time to certain calls or to certain areas. I think that is worth asking that too.
That's also why they have fire on all the calls too, because their EMTs, they're usually there first, because they're out zone in the city and, you know, where it's respond quicker.
Well, and part of it in here, half of the Sioux Falls calls are medical emergencies, so.
Yeah, I think like I said, yeah, I did note that most of them, or half of them are that they're not necessarily fire calls, so they're first responders in that sense. The next part in here, as far as public safety goes, is Metro Communications. And this department is what is responsible for dispatching our emergency services throughout the area, such as emergency response, personnel, law enforcement, fire, ambulance services, and emergency management. Again, this department was formed in 1980 as a joint department with Minnehaha County and the city of Sioux Falls. So this is something that is ongoing, and it is our kind of the heart of the dispatch center. So we did, I wanted to mention this, and I talked with them. And again, there's not a lot of information, I guess, they provided us as far as their outlook to the future of what they would be doing, or the changes. The one thing in here that you can see that planning did work with Metro Communication is when they went through and did the rural addressing system. Instead of doing rural routes or whatnot, they went to the 911 system, which made it easier. So as far as I know, they don't have any other plan in place that, you know, to make that easier for the rural area. But again, the information that came from them is what I have listed here. All right, and yeah, the flip back page, actually, if you're following along here, seems to be right on my PDF here, but how that happened. Again, going over, and this is where the map for ambulance services come into play. That there's the six districts, which are your PSAs, are their primary service areas, and then there's also, you know, throughout that, each district has their EMTs and their emergency medical technicians that support the ambulance services throughout the county. And I believe there should be a map of our ambulance dispatch, is where these 6 ambulance dispatch or PSAs are located. And again, these are things that definitely could change too, just like fire ones. These boundaries are not in stone forever. This is just what they are currently. The other thing I'm going to add on here, I've been in contact with emergency management about just kind of getting a list of some more particular instances that they respond to. People might not understand exactly what they do, so you know, having a list that they do things such as respond to the tragedy that happened down at Falls Park, or when Renner flooded. You know, that there are certain things they have in place in order to provide services to the county. The next part for existing facilities are libraries. Again, this is the majority of this is in our Siouxland library system, which serves the city of Sioux Falls and Minnehaha County, with the exception of Del Rapids. Del Rapids still operates its own library system. I did list the different branches that we have in the county, with all of them being within different municipalities. And then also showing the other facility being library in Del Rapids. And for some reason, it's right here, but you're 2 pages off where your heads to see that. So.
Maybe a stupid question or comment, but why don't I'll go for it. Do they see any changing in anything they're doing with the rural library, with the advent of internet and what everybody's doing on their pads, and has that affected those things? Is it something that's?
Well, like Del Rapids, for instance, I did put the photos in there of what they're looking at expanding, so you can tell that there's still need for people to come to the library and use their systems. It isn't, if you go into any of the libraries, a lot of it is that they have computer lab kind of systems now that provide data so people can research online journals, and they can research a lot more information than what they could just by having stuff in book form, like when we were in high school.
Plus, they're really moving to e-books. You can download e-books. So I think that they're still brick and mortar. That's just transitioning to more digital use of the library.
Yep. Well, that's what I've seen. I was thinking more of the rural or the mobile library.
Yeah, I don't know about mobile one, but I suppose it.
But you can log into a lot of them. You can log in and get some of the periodicals and things that you might need to look at through their website. So I think it's reaching out to the people that maybe don't have the ability to go into town and look up all the resources. But I think again, maybe that's worth something adding to see where a little bit more of what their future growth or what they see.
Or what those things that they're doing there, so people realize that it is more than just a place with archives of books to look at, because that's what many people will look at it as in the future, and just be, that's where all the books are.
Well, and the other thing, as far as schools are concerned, the bookmobile is still a big deal. Because putting books in the hands of little people, is still, they have computer labs and all this stuff in the school too, but it's the actual learning to read and that kind of stuff. It's still
My kid gets a lot more excited when she got an iPad in her hand than a book, though.
well, and I will say, my grandchildren do too, but it's still,
That'll be the medium. though, that
it's still
books
an
come.
important part for them because, if they read at night, they don't read the iPad, they're, kind of, so,
I'm just
it's
asking
going
a question.
somewhere, who knows what, but the library system seems to be doing a pretty good job of keeping up and keeping ahead of it. So,
Yeah, on just kind of off of that, I went and was a volunteer over at the courthouse for their history day, and because the kids are so involved with being online, when we would ask them what is their primary source for going to the library, going to the internet, you say, what is your primary source, and they say Google. And there's a problem with how some of this is they don't understand that's really not a source. And looking at it's good to still have the ability to get them into an actual library and see some of that stuff, because it's just not the same. But anyway. Next, going over schools, there's the 12 public school districts over the portions of Minnehaha County. Again, I do have it listed here, their enrollment of 2000 and then 2012. I don't believe there's any of them that necessarily, there's a few that decrease a little bit, but the majority of them are numbers that have increased in enrollment from K through 12. Again, the majority of these schools are located within the municipalities, with the exception of Tri-Valley School District and Redberg Elementary. So them are the two that are still rural schools. Everybody else at this point is still within city limits. And you have to look at them as if new schools are built, if they were to build out in the county, the services that we need to provide them, different roads, systems. I mean, that you have to think that city limits, when they're inside there, they have more services available to them. We've noticed over different planning applications that we've talked about at our planning commission, that there's different challenges in the rural area. You know, some of that is railroad crossings and not having, you know, maybe the right turning lanes for the students to get in and out of the buildings. I mean, there's different challenges that go upon our county highway system that maybe aren't all of them up to the standard that would be for putting on a new high school out in the county. So different challenges.
You have to wonder too, like when the new Axtell opens, that's in 2014, I believe, isn't it? You know, how that will end up, that combination with open enrollment, how that will affect Tri-Valley and West Central and such too.
Like in 2008, Tri-Valley was 875.
2008.
So you can, you know, look at, when you look at this, in those 12 years, looks like there was some growth, but there was actually, in 2008, we had 875 students in Envision.
Some growth and some shrinkage.
Yeah, you know, so whether some of it is, you know, open enroll, you don't, you know, we're just kind of looking into some of those figures now, but I think our
West Central is down in the last 3 or 4 years, but I think it's the numbers of students overall are down.
oh yeah, I think so.
I mean, I don't know, we lose some kids to open enrollment, but, you know, we were up to 14 something, right, at 1,400, 3-4 years ago. But there's some smaller class sizes that are.
Which one were you talking about?
West Central.
West Central.
And now I think it's gonna be over 1,300 kids.
Is the Chester district coming to Minnehaha County?
Yeah. I think there's a map.
Yeah, but I'll show that here. Here's the school district map that shows the 12 districts that we have.
Chester's numbers are inflated slightly because they do a virtual school, high school for Hutterite kids. So they can count those kids in the numbers. No, I mean, Hutterite County is all over the state.
Or somebody actually goes to the common right there.
No,
No,
it's,
it's basically online.
It's online.
But they figured out a way so they get to count the children as far as state aid.
clever superintendent. Graham.
Yes, he did a good job.
Chester,
Huh.
he said Chester.
Yeah,
These
Mom.
over people would be smarter.
You would think so, right?
I talked to Mark at the basketball game and I was like, he told me, that's pretty neat.
Yeah, he did a good job. He's retired.
After he left kids.
Well, yeah, then when you look on the map, you can see, it used to be T and Lennox were one district, and then they split, it was about 5, 6, probably longer ago than I remember, but, yeah, so these boundaries do change, so most people don't like to give up any land or lose any students, but.
Well, I think there's a push by developers too, getting outlying school districts, trying to get the property big into the Sioux Falls School District. And I know that's happening.
There is, and you look at where Sioux Falls parks their new schools, you know, half a mile from the border for Vermont.
Well, then
So, but, you know, and that's, you know, either here or there, but they're gonna, you know, so they're gonna, those schools are gonna need kids. So
They
it's
don't-
gonna
they
be,
don't wanna go
it's
there.
big, it's gonna be an open enroll, you know, and they're within, you know, this new one out west is within a half mile of Tri-Valley and a half mile of Central.
It's close, it's a quarter mile from our district.
Brandon owns land and owns a park, so go figure.
We always looks at Axtell Park, which was discussed with Sioux Falls.
During my time, but
West Central gonna go for Spanish immersion classes. Just all that is.
You have to master the English language.
The last part of existing facilities is parks and open space. I just listed the two parks that the county is still in control of, the Buca Prairie and Wall Lake. Again, there are a variety of different recreational opportunities available within the county, within the state, within our federal government system. Again, we're looking at not only stuff that's by us, but public and private. So, things as such like Wildwater West or the Yogi Bear Campground or something along them lines are still what we're looking at as recreational opportunities. And that is another side of our economic development that we will look at a few more that would maybe outline this better. And then also our parks and open space chapter that outlines this. So it's a very brief of existing parks or different type of recreational opportunities. But again, just remember that we actually have a chapter that's dedicated to parks and open space.
That chapter will cover like state parks that are in the existing area and stuff also.
Yeah, and we have a map of a lot of them areas that show the state, the one up by Garrettson or some of the ones west of town, some of the wildlife production areas that are federal fish and wildlife or whatnot. So. And if you remember, we actually had them come and talk with us too about some of that. That was very helpful about guiding us for different things, open space. Maybe it's different types of landscaping around some of the lakes, like Wall Lake. So some of them pesticides, chemicals aren't washing into the lakes. They had a variety of different ideas for us to include. So lastly, with this chapter, just kind of as we briefly went over this, people and public safety, goals, action steps, generally, so I'll just, go over these, and maybe after looking at these, there's maybe something that you think that we should add. I definitely think we can add more actions underneath these, but, I had to get us started somewhere. So when you look over these, definitely if you have more comments in the future, if it's not just today, we can add them in too. Goal 1, provide quality services and facilities to residents of Minnehaha County in a cost-effective manner. Goal 2, create safe, healthy, and livable communities in Minnehaha County. Goal 3, manage the challenge and opportunities derived from growth and development. Goal number 4, sustain the county's excellent financial health and economic profile. And some of these are by sharing the resources, engaging in business community, to create that common interest in development. Goal 5, incorporate sustainable practices into the operation of Minnehaha County's facilities and services. A lot of that is sustainable practices, and again, them are some other chapters that we have looked at, and we'll be providing some of that information down the road as well. But generally speaking, people, public safety are some of the goals and action steps that we have listed here that fit this chapter. If there isn't any other comments on that, I'll let Pat go over our next chapter. So now this is going from the front now. All right.
I do have one thought on the last one though. Do we need to be cognizant at all of, like we've got a number of migratory patterns through this county. When we look at parks and such, do we need to pay attention that we aren't doing something to mess up the migration patterns and such too? I think like the monarch butterflies that fly through our place and stuff like that. It's like, to me, that adds really something.
So proposing for something is if you were to locate a park somewhere that it should be in this area or?
Just
or-
saying,
Not
want to do
destroying
something
their-
to disturb.
Their
ones that are
wetland
already
areas where
there.
they traditionally go and
Yeah.
that.
Is that something we want to keep intact and just make sure it's not destroyed? Maybe the farmers don't want those geese out there, I don't know, but.
Maybe, yeah. There's been a lot of state.
Yeah, the size are dark.
Those are the problems.
Just want to use this.
Okay, the next subject is agriculture. And these sheets are out of order as well. I'm not really gonna read through the first page, it's just kind of a summary. I think you all know we grow corn predominantly in this county. And also the livestock, production that we have in the county as well. We are one of the top producing counties for the state, which is kind of interesting given the number of residential, the intense residential development that we have, that we still are one of the top farming producers. And it just speaks to the importance of that to our economy in this area. This will be improved. These were just a few different facts to throw in here. Looking again that 75% of the county still is in use in some kind of farming in cropland. And then farms by size, and I think those of you that are involved in farming are not surprised to notice that the acres farmed are decreasing, but sometimes the yields have been increasing, which is maybe more the positive side to look at that. So looking at goals, and I know you're going to have to find these pages again, and this is one of the areas that I'd like a little feedback. The first goal talks about having preserving long-term agricultural uses, protecting them, maintaining farms. And the first two action steps that are talked to that, and before we had talked about perhaps having these intense overlay districts, we had done the maps and we looked at the northeast and the northwest parts of the county, and then some kind of in the southwest corner, and looked at maybe doing something in that area too with building eligibilities. We had some talk about allowing transfer within the township to kind of preserve the best farm ground, letting people cross other lines. And so I guess before we go further into that and increase the section on that, I want to know if the task force still supports that idea or has reservations and wants to stay with the 1 for 40 that we're at, or if you want to just see a little more information before you would make a decision. So I don't want to leave something in the goal section if we're not, looking at trying to do that.
I wondered about your action 1.1 that you indicated preserve the county's best agricultural land. I think we looked in those areas where there just isn't as much development yet. That doesn't necessarily mean that's the best ag land in the county.
That's true.
If we're going to try and save the best ag land, then, we're gonna look at the soil diversion and stuff in the county. I just don't know that you're gonna be able to, because truly already some of the best farmland has gone. And I don't think that was taken into consideration when development happened. So, I guess that kind of stuck out to me. And then the clustering on non-productive ag land, I know that's where it first started, and that too it was never held up, it was never really done. So, yeah, I was curious about that as well. Essentially, we looked at those areas where it just hasn't been intruded on yet, and thought that might be the easier place to try and halt.
It's hard to, the right deal, because we have discussed the fact of of trying to shift them closer to municipalities so that they can use services that are already there, roads, sanitation and all that stuff. I don't know what the right answer is. People wanna, you know, be out, away a little bit, and but, you know.
Well, I think ultimately, though, you need to look at if that is incurring hardship on the existing
Oh, it is.
operations.
And the people
And
that
so
want
then-
that don't necessarily always know what they're getting when because of snow removal, grass to mow, weeds to take
So
care
just
of.
like
I mean, it's
you
just,
don't let somebody build a home in a floodplain,
just because they want to, because they can't.
just
or
because they
don't
want to,
yeah.
or they can. So I think certainly we need to provide some of that direction to keep that ag ground sustainable.
Don't you think that with this current land value, there's be a lot less people selling off their ground because it's, you know, if somebody's gonna buy a chunk of ground, $50,000 for 5 acres, that's farm ground price now.
Yeah.
So they're gonna have to around pay $100,000 if they're gonna, how much they're gonna do it.
I think that's what's deterred
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
But if it turns around,
Which,
you're still going to have people who might be looking at value adding their ag. So corn goes down, maybe they're thinking, okay, I need to feed it through livestock now. But I can't put up a livestock building because I have neighbor Joe here.
I just think there needs to be, you know, because I don't want to deter anybody from ever wanting to have a dream of, house in the country. But I do think there has to be stricter, or more teeth in the, when people come out to the country and they're around a farm. It's like, you are well aware that there's cows, pigs, horses, everything. And it's gonna affect your,
That currently goes on in re-eligibility, but we've been told it has.
well, that's what I mean.
Yes.
We've been told, so what's the point of that? So let's make it have some teeth, because it's that.
But I think it was a matter of legally.
Yeah, it's the legal issues
Oh.
that raise and to how,
Without something like this behind it.
Sure.
okay. So maybe I'll work on drafting.
Pat, I'll say this, and I've said this before, if you really wanna make it tougher for people to build on a green side in an ag zone area, let's force them to buy more acres. Cause right now they can put up anything as long as they have the eligibility.
they've got 1 acre they can go on, isn't it? now?
Yeah, that's the
That's
minimum
the
lot
minimum.
size that's required.
That just, we do a lot of construction out in the country, for property owners, by the time you do setbacks, they can't have a decent place on an acre. I don't think they have one unless they're fine. But they're trying to do it, and then that chunk of ground looks terrible, they're not keeping up, they don't have any room for windbreaks, they don't have any
Yeah,
room to
you
do
definitely
anything.
can't fit a good shelter built on 1 acre.
So why not make it 30 acres then?
When I bought mine years ago, that's 25 years ago, I had to have 40. And I took 3 years to find an acreage back then, and you bought an existing one. And, we still got to have our acreage, it's pretty tough. But I think a few more restrictions, we've got 1 acre plopping down everywhere. We drive around the country all the time doing the construction, there's some ugly sites out there that are, well, number one, they don't have enough money to do it, but they're doing it because they can on 1 acre. So they plop a house down there and then they don't do anything to it. 25 years later, there's no trees or nothing there. It's just an ugly old house out on the prairie. If there was a little more restriction, I think, to where they had to have more land, that might help at least get some of the really bad ones out there.
It's one of the,
If you get to the point where you rule and regulate everybody out of everything, what point do you back off and leave people?
yeah, what's ugly to you.
What's ugly to you.
That's his
To them.
domain on his acre.
And the flip side of what I have been told by people calling in, and this is something that I deal with, is I have people that call in on a regular basis. That means 3 or 4 times a year. And I get the person that says, I have 6 acres or I have 5 acres and it's just so much to mow and it's so big. I want to be able to split this in half and I'm going to have my brother-in-law or my sister or my mother wants to build a house here. Because 6 acres is just so much land that I don't know what to do with it. It's just so much grass to mow, and so I get that as well. And then we get the pressure to subdivide that 6 acres into 3 acres.
You know, to me, that might be a spot where somebody in Buffalo Township that has this hunk of ground that's isolated and is really, would like some cash. If he could transfer an eligibility from there, is that good or bad? You know, how popular, you've already
You can
got
look
a
at that
house stuck in
criteria
6 acres.
And then not pass every one of them, because again, you're gonna end up with those septic situations that we sat with, and, and again, I mean, I get where you're coming from, Ron, I really do, but to sit here and see somebody who wants to expand their ag operation in an ag zoned area, and they're told no, because it's going to smell for your neighbors, and that just doesn't sit well for me. You're stopping somebody from their livelihood.
But you're also infringing on the other person's comfort with living.
No, because there are several places you can build a residence,
No, if they were already existing.
which goes back to, let's not make it so easy for them to exist now. I mean, I think we've done this in error, and we have stopped some of the production.
See, my point was, at what point does the government back off and not rule and regulate us to death? Not only in the building, but it's coming even in the ag sector. You know, with the EPA rules, everything that's coming down the pipe, I get just tired of seeing it. And it's like the people who, and these guys are going to stab me in the back, maybe I better turn. People that have jobs here, it's their job to come up with something. Because if they weren't coming up with new rules and regulations every day you take Congress or anybody, they wouldn't have a job.
I think like anything else, it's all prompted by the calls, and you're trying to serve the public. But,
And out of as large as our county is and as many residences as we have out there, actually percentage-wise, how big is it? Then you have problems.
Oh, it's very small. It's
It's
just
very small.
It's sometimes the squeaky wheel that gets the grease, and it's, the mouse that roared. I mean, it just takes one person to, go to the elected officials, and then suddenly it's an issue. And then,
Right.
Then they're
But see, they've always said squeaky wheel gets the grease. Sometimes just replace the squeaky wheel.
Well, that sounds like government regulation to me.
Throw it out.
So we wanna come up with a buyout system if you squeak too loud.
Well, it all generates down to
Yeah.
money. If you want to
It does,
make
yeah.
it hard to build out in the country, just make it too expensive for them.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that we think there should be some stricter rules, but not necessarily a big change. And I think when we did that survey, we found that people were happy with the 1/40. They
Well,
really
that's what I was
want
gonna, I
a
thought we had
change.
already talked about this quite a bit.
Yeah, but I just wanna make sure
But at the same
before-
token, it's a live debate yet, that obviously
Yeah,
there's a lot of debate on
we
it.
hadn't come to a final
Yeah.
decision, so I just wanted to hear again, but, okay, I
Well,
think
did
we
you
kind of
think that
have
there was a
some
good
direction.
answer to this question?
No.
Well,
No, I
again,
didn't.
using the best ag land and stuff, but the setbacks, the
Yeah.
reverse setbacks definitely.
And that was under goal number 2, we
Exactly.
had talked about, that'd be action 2.2, adopting some setback standards for new residential dwellings too, that were coming in, that might be located close to a feedlot that's already out there. Kind of reversing the standards that feedlots already have to meet for their locations.
So you would change
to be
that, Terry,
separated.
you'd change those setbacks too? Is that what you're saying?
Right now,
They're
it's setbacks for you to build livestock next to a residence. It should be
Right.
the other way around as well.
Okay, I like that.
That-
As a newcomer, and you can tell by my accent, I'm not from around here, you know. But I really do encourage you to wrestle with this. I moved here 4.5 years ago from Carroll County, Georgia, which is in the outskirts of Atlanta. And it is the largest beef producing county in the state. And we had a land, expert that came in, and he looked at the trends, and the headline of the paper after his talk the next day was that in 30 years there will be another cow in this county if you don't do something. It really got a lot of attention. And the challenge, we wrestle with these very same challenges of farmland preservation, and how do you get that right mix of allowing people the right to make use of their property and to use it at least according to their purposes. At the same time, what we had seen in communities earlier to the growth of Atlanta was what we realized that it wasn't any one of those decisions that was made along the way was a good decision, but it was the cumulative effect of all those good decisions was horrible. It caused all these issues of congestion, and the farms were gone, and we literally had farmland conservation easements that were being adopted because we had kids in the school systems and everything that had no idea where their food came from. They were having to come out of Atlanta in order to visit real farms and see how they kind of acted. I think it's a very important topic to wrestle with a little bit.
There are a lot of people in this country that have no idea why they need a farmer, because they can go to the grocery store and buy everything they need.
Well,
They have no idea.
I think too, we are on through here, we're on a ribbon of really wonderful soil and land, and that, when that's gone, it's gone. And so we need to protect it so much.
I'm sure it'd be a management nightmare for you all, but could we make a graduated system where the farther you are away from a municipality, the bigger the chunk of land you need to build a house?
Say that one more time. Which way?
The farther you go away from a municipality, whether it's Del Rapids or Sioux Falls or whatever those distances or the city limits are, the farther you get away from there, the more ground you need to build a house. So if you're out in the most rural areas, you may need 40 acres.
Which achieves the goal of encouraging the building toward municipality, and also makes it easier to provide services.
Some of that I hear a lot about the size of a particular lot or how big it should be in order to build a house. And we've looked at some other examples around the country and to see that some of them say they do the 1 per 40, but some of them it's actually, to break this down, they were saying, the only place you can build is in these amenity areas. So they went through and made, one of them was in Minnesota. Of course, there's a lot of lakes. So they could only build around these lake areas that they determined were amenity areas. They maybe still were 1 per 40, but they located them in such an area that they could only build in these certain spots. And still the 1 per 40, but it was, so they broke it down into different types of areas that you would actually, so you're able to use the building eligibilities, but not interrupt some of the farm ground. And I forget I was trying to remember what a couple of the other ones were. That were in that, but thinking of that, not just only size of a lot, but maybe it's the position that they're actually able to build. One of them was they were only able to in areas where there were a lot of trees that already had an existing site, or there was a tree grove. They were able to. So many acres had to be in trees before they were able to actually locate an actual home there. So say it wouldn't be just a farm ground and then they built a house. There had to be some trees, a tree grove, and I know that isn't necessarily for Minnehaha County probably, but just an example, if you're a really wooded county, that might be something, this is where you can locate them, where there's trees that it's appropriate for a residence. So just some of them looking at different ideas, not just only lot size or 1 per 40 or 1 for 25 or whatever it would be.
point, and our task here isn't to come up with that, we just need some guidance to the next task force we ask you to be on, to look at, you know, coming up with the how to do it, but I just wanted to make sure before we put something in that we were at least were in agreement that we wanted to do something that makes it a little bit tougher. We also had two other goals, on some sheet 4 and 5. And those just are again wanting to reinforce the importance of agriculture in this county, and the need to support it and preserve that. And so this will be increased. We'll go more into building eligibilities for this chapter as well. The second part of this chapter is labeled Ag Tourism, and it's probably on the back of that, goals 4 and 5. In the blue square there, we added the definition that we adopted, and we did this about 5 years ago. We added a section for agricultural tourism to our zoning ordinance, and so this is the definition for that we added at that time. Really encouraging, this is a way for farm operations to find a second business that they could do right on their farmstead if they needed to. And then it also added a way for tourism that would be tied to ag, which would be some of the wineries, maybe having the corn maze as something that there's some kind of ag product involved. And we have seen a little bit of growth in that. If you look at the next sheet, and I stole somebody's picture off their web.
I see that, yeah.
And your name got scooted over, so we'll fix that with the cheese. We want to make sure that when we do have these agricultural tourism events or stores or whatever they are, that they don't conflict with the farming community, that they enhance that. And so within the ordinance, when you apply to do an ag tourism event, there are a lot of things that you have to provide us before you can be approved. It's an administrative approval, but we do notify the neighbors. So if there are any complaints, then we have a public hearing before the planning commission. Otherwise, it's administrative, but we want to make sure that, especially for traffic, parking, safety issues, that these do fit into the community and don't cause a hardship to what's already there. The next page would be some of the goals for agriculture and tourism, starting there with number 6. Just find it up here. Okay. To promote the development of agricultural tourism, the first one, action step 6.1, is actually being done now. Dustin in our office is working on a web page and brochures that will list all of these types of businesses that are out in the county, and you may have contacted some of you, I'm not sure, probably Chris, you may have contacted, but it is it's going to be a free web page that will list all the businesses. People can click on it, get a location or contact. Then eventually the site will be advanced. We'll have things like all the historical markers, all the cemeteries, things that different places that people could go and look at when they're in the county. And then the further advancement of that will be a creation of the more commercial and industrial areas. We're going to work on that later in the process, and Nick will probably be talking with you on that as well, and how to encourage economic development outside of the farming as well. So a couple of these other goals, looking to work with the county and state on getting our businesses that are here in the county connected to those websites as well, producing a guide that would help you know all the contacts you should have if you're going to start a business, other resources for you. One of the things that I found at another place under goal number 8, should be first action statement, was the Adopt a Farmer program, where you kind of what you were talking about, that nobody knows where the food comes from, that you actually are, the farmer is linked with a class, and they get to learn more about how, where the food comes from, how it's produced, maybe do a farm visit then also working with the Siouxland Heritage Museums, and kind of looking at how agriculture developed in this county and how it's changed, and doing a program with that. So that was the end of the agriculture part, unless somebody has any other questions, any comments on it. Then we also had this history section, which I'll go through pretty fast because we're really looking at the future.
That was a great section.
It was kind of interesting. Thank you, Deb. So, kind of starts with this page has a green box on the corner. Looking at how the counties actually started before South Dakota was even a state, coming from part of the Louisiana Purchase. And really it was the Homestead Act that encouraged people to come to this part of the country. One of the things on this page that was a little bit hard to read was taking out of the newspaper from 1881, and how they had to post to get the section of land that they had homesteaded and to make it their claim. Then just wanted to, on the next page, talk about the quarrying and its importance and how that helped boost the economy in this area. And then also underneath these pictures, which are from the East Sioux Quarry, where the old East Sioux Falls, now where Arrowhead Park is out there, or across the street there. Sioux Falls kind of became a divorce capital of the nation, and actually the world, it seemed like, after reading this. And it was cheap to come here because you could get your residency within 6 months. In most places it took much longer. So they would come here you'd live here for 6 months, get a divorce, but meanwhile they spent money in the community. We needed boarding houses for all these people. So that really helped also to boost the economy here. Again, our court site being used right here to build the courthouse. And I don't know if some of you know, but it was, the architect was Dow, and there's going to be a movie about him on Sunday that you can go and see at the courthouse. Just a little aside about that. And then the map showing what used to be Dakota County before it was subdivided for North and South Dakota. And then Nebraska was made a little bit smaller too, it's like. Then the importance of the rail coming into this area also, which allowed, of course, more people to get here easier. Just put in a picture that showed one of the first kind of sod houses, temporary houses for people.
Now I noticed it said that was in Lyons Township.
Yes.
But when I went on and looked at Moorfield, when I Googled it, it indicates that it's in, I can't say it,
Speardrop.
Okay, that one.
Yeah. There
So I
are,
wonder if there was,
I've seen Moorfield listed different places, but there isn't an exact location that I can get it for you, but.
there is, no.
Yeah, it's on the range road.
Huh.
So also included in the history was kind of looking at how the planning of the county also started really back in 1966, but that was under the city's jurisdiction, City of Sioux Falls. It wasn't really until 72 that we had a planning department for the county. That's when that started here. And so from that then forth, it was the county that was in charge of doing all the outside areas outside of the municipalities. We had some growing pains with our original ordinances, had court cases, so continue that tradition of being sued. And finally, kind of to where we are today. Lost my pages here. Did some big revisions in the 80s, and then in 1990 we had our last comprehensive plan, so you will be, or 1998, I'm sorry, last comprehensive plan, so you will be working on that, replacing that document. And so in all those years, the role of the planning department has grown quite a bit. We've added a lot of other uses that we now are in charge of, like drain tile and code enforcement, rural addressing, road vacations, we have the computer, the GIS computer mapping is through us. So, and the county parks, so we've done quite an expansion since this department began in the 70s.
Road vacations.
Get to,
They're not a road.
Vacating.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
It's
a
road
new, it's
vacation.
the newest thing now.
You're doing tastes, so we can.
If you look real hard.
I read that road vacation, they're gonna catch some shit around.
If you look real hard at that lower picture, Steph Bundy is featured there in her black turtleneck.
Ah.
There's her Mike Cipher who came in at the end here and joined us.
Actually, I was about ready to go off.
Yes, you were.
Just stay on.
Sorry, I didn't mean to bring this one up. Okay, so that kind of sums up that area.
See, when you look at that side, that's the line.
Sure, yeah, let's get that.
Well, see, it says south of Northfield, well, it could have been south of Northfield, but on the west side of the road, which would have been Lyons Township.
Northfield's right where,
Yeah.
Cosmetics, yeah. But, see, that's on the east side of the road, which is Square Township. So it could have been south of Northfield, but on the west side of the road, it would have been at Lyons Township. Yeah, that's the township line there. So,
Well, I did have a couple other things lined up. I guess it took longer than I thought to go through them. I wanted to go over part of that economic development as far as where maybe some future amenity areas for rail lines might be, but I think we'll have to do that the next time we meet. So I do appreciate everybody coming today. I guess if there's any other comments, anything you want to provide, anything that you have written in your along the way, email me, let me know if there's any other comments, concerns, questions, and we'll try to assist you with that. And I'll also be emailing out our next meeting details. We do have one scheduled for, of course I don't have the calendar right in front of me, the first Thursday in May, to see what we have together by that time, because I believe we're going to be
planting corn.
Yeah.
that too. So it is a busy time of year, so we'll let you know if we're for sure having one,
May 2nd.
or it would be the June meeting. So we will get that figured out and let everybody know by email when our next meeting date is. So let's do it. I appreciate everybody coming, and again, I really appreciate the comments. Every little bit helps as we go forward to develop this plan. So thank you guys.
Yeah, we're taking cheap bicycle.
You need more really good 40 pictures.
Some lights you can figure out.
We got into the great materials.
Anyway, sorry, well, no, I mean, I assume. Not at all, that one made me laugh.
They can only use as a farm, then a combination of
That's like 26.